I think we're asking the wrong question here. Why are opponents more concerned about how government will get to continue spending our money and not more concerned about how they can find efficiencies to create the tax relief that Maine families need? I guess I have my own question here. How much is enough? 1 out of every $7 we earn is taken away from us by state and local government in the form of taxes. How much more does government want? We are one of the highest tax states in the nation. As we said, the excise tax is the 7th highest in the nation. Maine families cannot afford to keep paying government so they can continue their spending binges. We must pass tax relief. Question 2 is our opportunity to have Maine families pay less to experience that tax relief and to build on their financial future. I guess that's it. How much is enough? Vote yes, pay less. How much is enough? How much more do they demand from us? We need tax relief. We can't afford the status quo. Opponents who are eagerly embracing the status quo have expressed an unwillingness to create the tax relief we know will make a difference for families and businesses across the state. And I guess I have one question of my own here for the crowd. How many of you have seen your household budgets increase in the last year or so? 1, 2, 3 out of about 70? Okay. Just think about that for a couple of minutes while we listen to opponents of question 2 demand more and more of our money to keep funding government spending.
There seems to be an interest in demonizing municipal officials among the proponents of this initiative. It's kind of hard to be on the down slope of this process and not get into quick rebuttal, but I'll try to stay out of that until the rebuttal time. I think Peggy has it exactly right. This is a pretty stark decision-making process that's facing local government. Either you're going to be reducing your public works budget to the tune of your losses, or you are going to be increasing your property taxes to the tune of those losses, or some combination of both. Maine is a rich state with regard to voter access to local government decisions. In 450 municipalities in Maine, the voters make those decisions directly in the town meeting process. In the other 50 or so municipalities, that decision is made by a council for which there is a great deal of access from the voters. So those decisions will ultimately be made by the voters. My suspicion, my prediction, is that in the early stages of implementation, there will be very sharp reductions in the road budgets. In some of the larger cities, that, as Peggy was pointing out, that creeps into stormwater and traffic control systems and other public works areas. In my town, Mount Vernon, it's purely the road budget. Our contract to the private sector road plower who does our road plowing calls for him to get out on the road when there's 2 inches of snow. We can amend that contract and make it to get out of the road when there are 4 inches of snow or 6 inches of snow. We can change the contract to adjust to the revenue that we have available to do the work. I don't hear a big clamor about how municipalities are spending profligate amounts of money on the repair and maintenance of the roads in the state at all. I don't hear that one little bit. So I think that's the decision-making process. There's a great deal of this $205 million in excise tax revenue that goes to the private sector. In my town, most of it goes to the private sector. Maybe that's why Pike Industries is opposed to this proposal. Maybe that's why the Associated General Contractors are opposed, the Associated Business Contract Association, whatever it is. They're opposed to this initiative because of the amount of private sector work that's done with regard to local road maintenance and repair in the state.
Now we'll have a 90-second rebuttal for each of the panelists here. Again, we'll start again with the chair on the far end.
Sure. Well, I would expect that Pike Industries is probably opposed to this initiative because over the last 3 years, they've received $81 million in state contracts. And you can see how state government money is spent on a website that we maintain called Maine Open Gov. So I think that they have a vested interest in this high auto excise tax relief. I don't think that that's particularly surprising that they want to keep the rates high to maintain those $80 million in contracts. The important thing here to look at is we have an opportunity to provide auto excise tax relief. I don't know how it is in your family, but for my wife and I, we own 2 cars. We buy a newer car and we drive it into the ground. And we buy a newer car and then we drive it into the ground. And so when Jeff talks about that this initiative only helps a certain portion of people, he's right. It helps all of us when we buy a newer car. But because we're in a low-income state, we don't do that every year. But when you do it, as we hope to do as a family in a couple of years, then it will provide auto excise tax relief.
I find it interesting on how much is enough in that whole discussion, because nobody likes taxes, and that's why this is such an interesting discussion. Let me tell you a couple stories. When we made some cuts back in 2006, we cut out one person out of public works. We cut out a lot of people, but this is one particular instance. One individual who did sidewalk plowing, he did other things, he did some mowing and a few other things. We eliminated plowing all the sidewalks in the city of Old Town as something we didn't necessarily need. We did the downtown, we did certain thoroughfares. The first snowstorm we had so many calls we couldn't keep up with them on why isn't this sidewalk plowed. And there's a huge disconnect between the vote or the decision to make a cut and the effect of what that cut means. We also had built, a year later, a budget on some leased parking and increased leased parking. So this isn't working real good. And so we built a budget. The council approved it. It went through the whole process. A month later, we brought the leased parking fees to the council to approve. They didn't approve them. So we're back at a deficit. We knew we were going to have a deficit revenue. And then this particular year, we had an individual that lives out on the lake came to the council, and he thanked us for not raising our taxes, which was nice. We had a 1740 mill rate last year. We got a 1740 mill rate this year. And he thanked us. He said, people can't afford to stay on the lake. They're selling the camps. They can't afford the taxes. The next sentence that he asked the council was, you're fixing my road, but you're not doing it well enough. Can you borrow $3 million to fix this road? So there's a huge disconnect. And I think that it's important to know that those of us in the municipal government have to deal with the reality of it.
I'm not an elected official. I don't pretend to be one, but let me just tell you briefly about what I did with my own personal budget during these challenging times. I started clipping coupons. I switched to some generics. I canceled movie night. I didn't stop eating. I didn't stop driving to work. It's about priorities. And I understand the difficult job that municipal officials will have when they have to find efficiencies to create this tax relief, but that's what they're elected for. They're elected to represent the members of their community based on the demands of that community. And the people of Maine are demanding excise tax relief. We collected over 63,000 signatures to put this petition on the ballot. 63,000 Mainers signed the petition to create lower excise tax relief in Maine. And a poll in late May found that 67% of Maine voters support question 2. They support lower excise taxes. This is not an issue of how can government keep spending our money. This is an issue of how government can change its behavior so that the people of Maine can enjoy tax relief. Now more than ever, Mainers need tax relief. Question 2 is our opportunity.
Just a couple of points in final rebuttal. I want to slip back to the private sector and public sector issue again. One of the claims that has been made by the proponents is that public sector growth is high, private sector growth is stagnant. That's a bad thing, and I don't know, somehow this thing addresses it. The $80 million, $84 million that's cut, that would be cut if this were adopted by the voters on November 3rd. A lot of that goes to the private sector. So we the private sector is a good thing. It's the proponents, sort of the basis of the proponents' whole foundation, really, and that the private sector is a good thing. Municipalities believe the private sector is a good thing, and they engage the private sector, particularly with this revenue. The other issue is how much is enough, and that argument, 2 points. One, municipalities are already experiencing naturally the same types of reductions that their constituents are experiencing. There is less excise tax revenue coming into the municipalities because of the economy. There's less revenue sharing coming into the municipalities because of the economy and because of acts of the legislature. There's significantly less education funding coming into municipalities, particularly in the outgoing years. FY11 looks like a train wreck ready to happen with regard to general purpose aid and school funding. So municipalities are already absorbing that, And they're just doing that. And there are cuts, and there are reductions in services, and there are layoffs. This would be on top of that. This is an addition to what's being experienced on the local level. And I probably don't have any more time.